Good morning, everyone. I want to thank everyone for attending virtually and with your patience as we try and host press conferences through these virtual means like this. This is a long time coming. We've been negotiating with the U.S. Department of Justice and the U.S. EPA and the Illinois EPA and the Illinois Attorney General for more than 14 years. So we're working through this process. We're pleased to get to this point. We have a consent decree from the federal government that will be presented to both the City Council and the Sanitary District's Board of Trustees. That will go next week. Our plan is to have a special City Council meeting on Tuesday at noon to approve the consent decree. And then I think the Sanitary District will have their meeting on Tuesday as well. So just quickly, I'm going to try and share my screen and just kind of go through a quick fact sheet that we have put together and just kind of talk through some of the highlights. The consent decree is about 119 pages long, so I'm not sure anyone's going to want to dig into the details of that. So we're going to jump in and I will do a quick if I can pull this up here, and of course, let me see if I can find it. Hang on just a second. And why can't I find my file? My apologies here. Anyway, I will just quickly talk through this as I look to find it here on my screen. I'm not seeing it. There we go. You see that pop up? Did everyone see that now? This is the fact sheet that we put together, and I apologize for the delay. What we've tried to do is just summarize some of the requirements that we have within this consent decree. It's a requirement that the city will have to make improvements within the combined sewer overflow area. This is an 8 square mile area of the city, largely the oldest part of our city. And the idea behind it is that we are moving towards trying to get to almost virtually no overflows in the course of a year. As we look at this, most of the older part of the city was built prior to having the sewage treatment plant. So we had a sewer system that would just literally, that sewage would get conveyed down to the Illinois River and it would float away. And that was the way that we handled sewage. Then when the sewage treatment plant was built and the Sanitary District was founded, we still had areas of the city that have combined sewers. These are areas, and this map shows you the area along the riverfront where we have our combined sewer overflow points. We have a number of those overflow points where when we get too much water coming into the system, coupled with the sanitary sewers, it does end up belching that sewage out into the river. And so the Federal Clean Water Act requires that we try to eliminate those as much as possible. Both the Sanitary District and the city do have federal permits that we have to get from the US EPA and the Illinois EPA. And as part of that process, as we were trying to get our long-term control plan established to manage our CSOs, the federal government said that we needed to make changes and improvements, and that's the reason why we have the consent decree that we will be asking our respective bodies to approve. What we've been trying to do, and part of the reason that it's taken us a number of years longer to get to this point where we could actually have the consent decree finalized, is that we started discussions with the federal agencies, and the discussion centered around conveying the sewage to the sewage treatment plant. And the way that we were looking at conveying the stormwater, I should say, to the sewage treatment plant. The way that they had proposed that we do that would have been a second large pipe that would be put in the ground at a cost of almost $500 million. So we looked at that and we said that just based upon the topography of the city and on the soils below the bluff that are very sandy, that we felt that we could look at a green solution for us to try and approach solving the CSO problems. So beginning in 2015, it just so happened that the US EPA issued some guidance on green stormwater infrastructure. And this is what you see on this page. We have put together a number of different projects to show that below the bluff, most acutely, we can do things and put in infrastructure improvements that will capture the stormwater and infiltrate it back into the ground, into the sandy soils that we have below the bluff. And then that allows us to, instead of building a pipe that would cost our ratepayers a significant amount of money, that we could do this at a fraction of the cost and still comply with the Clean Water Act mandates. So what we were trying to do and what we've done over the course of the year is we've done several things. We've put in a well farm at Borisfield, which is near the corner of Elm and Reed in the south side of the city. And at that area there, we're building a stormwater park. We're conveying stormwater into that farm there to be able to use that to build to grow plants that we can utilize as we build our green infrastructure. If you look at Adams Street from Pecan to Persimmon, we did a pilot project there where we have stormwater bioswales where we convey the stormwater into the planting strips along the streets, and then that water is then conveyed down into the soils. We have a rain garden at Public Works. We also have dry wells and other stormwater features like at the intersection of Main and University, where we've put those in place. We're looking at bridge infields near the MacArthur Bridge, at the base of the MacArthur Bridge. And we also are looking at a green stormwater project as we do the Western Avenue redesign this year. So we'll be conveying the stormwater back into the ground as we work on Western. So we're using the infrastructure that we see above ground instead of spending literally $500 million to put something underground. So what is the requirements? The CSO requirements that we have is the goal is that by the end of the consent decree, which would be 18 years from now, that we are moving towards almost 100% reduction of our CSO volume. So we have milestones that are built into the consent decree that will require us to put in green stormwater infrastructure projects through the year 2034, and then wrapping up with some storage projects towards the end of the milestones that we have. The total capital cost for the city would be, and this is broken out kind of with estimates as of right now, of about $109 million for the city to make these improvements. And then there's ongoing annual maintenance costs. So by the end of the 18-year period that we have, we would be looking at about $3.5 million a year of additional maintenance costs that the city would have to absorb into their operating budget. So as we've looked at this, we have looked at how is the city going to finance this, and we've applied actually through the Illinois EPA has a revolving loan program, and we have applied just recently to fund this project or fund the first tranche of this project, the first $15 million through the state's revolving loan program. It's cheaper than if we were to borrow the money by issuing bonds. So we're looking at using that with a lower interest cost. And we're anticipating that our sewer rates will likely have to increase beginning in 2023 as we start to move through the financing of these projects. And I think that initially it might cost the initial ratepayer inside the city of Peoria beginning in 2023, not anytime sooner. We would be looking at probably on an annualized basis about $5.50, and then it would go up from there as we continue into the program. Again, the program would start ideally in 2022. We do have a bit of time as we work through getting the consent decree filed in court approved by the federal government. The first step is for the city and the sanitary district to approve. And then ultimately we would have to take this into court, have the federal judge sign off on it, and it would be lodged and go into effect probably mid-year this coming year. So with that, what I'd like to do before we get into questions is turn it over to Brian Johnson to talk about it from the sanitary district standpoint as well. Brian?
Yeah, thank you, Patrick, and thank you for everyone for being on the call, and thank you, Stacy, for arranging this today. I'm going to share my screen here, and hopefully you guys can all see it. So on the screen here is our website, our supplemental website called gpsdnext.com. Before I get into that, my name is Brian Johnson. I'm the Executive Director for the Greater Peoria Sanitary District. Again, gpsdnext.com has all of our detail on it. You click on the upper left icon, it'll take you to this page. And we're excited to be here today. GPSD has been a part of these negotiations for a very long time. And while the city owns the combined sewer system and the outfall, GPSD does own the riverfront interceptor, which is a large diameter pipe that runs along the interceptor or along the riverfront for approximately 7.5 miles. We also own the connection pipes from the city's combined sewer system into that interceptor. So because of this infrastructure ownership, our participation was necessary to come to this resolution, as our obligation is to help try to maximize flow as reasonably as possible using that infrastructure. So we did work collaboratively with the city, and we appreciate all their assistance and help in this process to come to the most cost-effective projects using this infrastructure as possible. So our projects are listed here on the bottom of this website. We have deadlines, we have areas where we're going to enlarge certain pipe and flow into the interceptor to try to maximize treatment here at the treatment plant. GPSD is excited to do our part. Part of our mission is environmental protection. We're excited to be part of the urban renewal efforts in Peoria and to help prepare Greater Peoria's infrastructure for the next 100 years. So again, gpsdnext.com has the information here, and I'll open it up for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. So I think at this point in time, we'd be open for questions.
Yeah, hey, this is Tim Shelley. One question I have basically is you have a certain number of targets you need to hit by a certain number of dates within this consent decree. I would like a little more detail on what additional projects will need to be happening in order to meet those targets. I know the GPSD document we just talked about had a little bit of that, but if we can get a little bit more in depth on that, that'd be great.
Thanks, Tim. So I think what I'll do is I'll go back and put this back up on the screen, the project milestones. So within each one of the combined sewer overflows areas, we have catchment areas where the sewers come into a point where we have the overflow pipe. And within each one of those specific sewer sheds, we will have to start to do some infrastructure work within those areas. We know that we have a volume target that we have to be reduced. See, as this slide shows you, by 2024, we have to have 20% of our CSO reduction in place. By 2027, we have to have 35%. So what we will be doing is for projects, we're going to be identifying what those projects are probably over the next year. And we'll be talking through that with the community, because one of the requirements as you work on doing green stormwater projects is it's not like you're putting in hard infrastructure underground. As Brian was mentioning, where the sanitary district may be doing some work on the riverfront interceptor, we may be doing a project that entails putting in bioswales on a street, or it could be a green alley. It could be that we're looking at having dry wells that would capture the stormwater and then slowly infiltrate it into the ground. And part of that is having a public engagement process and sitting down with the community as we plan out these projects so that we can get the input from the stakeholders that live in the neighborhoods. So we don't have specific projects outlined. We have a performance target that we have to meet. And so the next step for the city staff is to work through coming up with those specific projects and talking through that with the community.
Patrick, I'll add in there, part of the collaboration with the Sanitary District here is a lot of our projects, which are gray in nature, go first. So essentially, if many of our projects are taking existing pipes and making them larger by adding additional pipage or whatnot. So a lot of our projects are front loaded, and we're excited to make that investment first to help the city in that process.
I have two quick financial questions, please. One is the $100,000 civil penalty still part of this? And two, you mentioned it was going to be $5.50 per ratepayer. Is that per month or?
No, thanks, Phil. The civil monetary penalty is still included at $100,000. The second, that's on an annualized basis.
Well, that's just per year, huh?
Right now. And
Okay.
Now that will grow over time, but at least initially, and we're thinking probably beginning in 2023, that we'll start to see that number will creep up over time. But we've been really trying to look at how we can minimize the impact on the ratepayers that will be paying that. I mean, it's really everyone that has that currently pays a sewer bill inside the city of Peoria will be paying for a portion of this. So that's something that we're looking at right now. And we're very sensitive to that. So we're trying, that's part of the reason why it's taken us so long to get here, is that we've been trying to negotiate to a level that we felt that our citizens could afford, because our citizens, just like are the same citizens that the Sanitary District has. So those costs are going to be borne by Peoria residents.
Any other questions?
If I could just editorialize on that, Patrick, a little bit. And again, keep in mind that the original estimate with completely gray infrastructure was substantially higher than the 109 million that we now have as a proposed agreement. So those rates would have exponentially been higher as well.
Yes.
Okay, this is the last call for any other questions. Oh,
I guess I'll go again.
Okay.
Talking about that public input process. I mean, I know we're still in the era of COVID here. How does that begin, and when does that begin?
Well, Tim, I think that first we have to get to the point where this is in effect, and the first step is really having the council and the sanitary district start the approval process. It then has to go back to the federal agencies. There's a period of time where the consent decree will be filed in the Federal Register, and there will be a 30-day public comment period. Then it will have to be lodged in federal court here in Peoria. Once it's lodged in federal court, it'll take some time before the federal judge decides to make it effective. So probably not, this process will probably take at least 6 months. Just the same, our loan application process, working through the IEPA. We filed our preliminary project plan with them in December, and we may not know until March if we have been approved. And then it's going to take another year before we could start moving down the path of working on projects. So I would say that we'll be starting that engagement process probably in earnest beginning mid-year this year, moving into the third quarter of the year as well.
That originally, way back when, it was $250 million. That's what it was. The first settlement was that.
Phil, it was probably closer to $500 million if we were looking at creating a second interceptor that would run along the riverfront.
Okay, last call for questions. All right, hearing none, I want to thank all of you for joining us again at short notice. This is one of the only virtual press conferences we've hosted. I know that you've already received the materials that we've talked about today, but I will be putting the fact sheet, the link to GPSD, the consent decree, a link to our stormwater page on our website. I'll also link this press conference to it should you have any questions. And as the city manager said, we will be having a special council meeting on Tuesday at noon. So just look for the notice from the clerk's office for more information about that, probably in the very near future. And with that, I thank all of you for being here today, and we'll just conclude this press conference.